Have you ever heard of a man who survived not one, but 2 atomic bombs? It sounds like something from a comic book, a superhero origin story perhaps. But this is the true, haunting story of Tsutomu Yamaguchi, a story of unimaginable luck, or perhaps unimaginable curse. Our story begins on a completely ordinary day, August 6th, 1945, in the bustling city of Hiroshima. It was a Monday morning, clear and bright. 29-year-old Tsutomu Yamaguchi, a young naval engineer from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, was in the city on a business trip. The project he'd been working on for 3 months was finally wrapping up, and he was getting ready to go home to his wife Hisako and their infant son, Katsutoshi, in Nagasaki. He and his colleagues, Akira Iwanaga and Kuniyoshi Sato, had spent the last few months designing a new oil tanker, and it was time to return. That morning, Yamaguchi realized he had forgotten his hanko, a personal seal used for signing documents in Japan. It was an essential item, and he couldn't leave without it, so he headed back to his lodgings to retrieve it. As he was walking through the shipyards, he saw a lone American B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay, soaring through the cloudless sky. He watched as it dropped a small object attached to a parachute. He stared, curious. Then, at 8:15 a.m., the world ignited. A brilliant, blinding flash of magnesium light erupted in the sky. It was a pica, a flash, so intense it was like 1,000 suns exploding at once. Instinctively, Yamaguchi dove to the ground, covering his eyes with his hands and plugging his ears with his thumbs. The force of the blast was so powerful it lifted him up, spun him around like a tornado, and threw him into a nearby potato patch. Seconds later, the done. The thunderous roar of the explosion followed. The shockwave shattered windows a dozen kilometers away. A massive mushroom cloud of dust, smoke, and debris billowed into the sky, blotting out the sun and plunging the city into an eerie, premature twilight. When Yamaguchi slowly opened his eyes, the world he knew was gone. The familiar cityscape was replaced by a smoldering, apocalyptic wasteland. Buildings were flattened, reduced to rubble and twisted metal. Fires raged everywhere, and a thick, black, oily rain began to fall. He was disoriented. His eardrums were ruptured, and his vision was temporarily blurred. He looked down at himself. The left side of his body was badly burned, his skin blistering and peeling. His hair was scorched. But he was alive. He stumbled through the ruins, a ghost in a city of ghosts. The sights were hellish. He saw figures moving in the gloom, their skin hanging off their bodies in strips, their hair burned away. He passed by the river, which was choked with the bodies of those who had thrown themselves into the water to escape the flames. The air was filled with the groans of the dying and an overwhelming smell of burnt flesh. Somehow, he found his 2 colleagues, Iwanaga and Sato, who had also miraculously survived. Together, the 3 men, injured and in shock, made their way to a makeshift air raid shelter. They spent the night there, surrounded by the wounded and the dying, listening to the cries for water and the sounds of a city in its death throes. They couldn't comprehend what had happened. Was it a new kind of bomb? An accident? They had no answers. The next day, August 7th, Yamaguchi was determined to get home. Despite his severe injuries, he knew he had to return to his family in Nagasaki. He and his colleagues pushed their way through the nightmarish landscape to the train station. The station was a scene of chaos, but amazingly, some trains were still running. He boarded a train packed with other burned and bewildered survivors. The journey, which should have taken a few hours, was a long, agonizing trip through a devastated countryside. The passengers were silent, shell-shocked, wrapped in their own private horror. Finally, on August 8th, Yamaguchi arrived back in Nagasaki. He staggered home to his wife and child. Hisako was so shocked by his appearance, bandaged, burned, and almost unrecognizable, that she barely knew him. He was feverish and weak, but he was home. He went to a local hospital to have his burns treated by a doctor, who happened to be his old school friend. The doctor looked at the strange, severe burns, and was baffled. Yamaguchi tried to explain what he had seen. A single bomb that destroyed an entire city. A flash of light that burned people from a distance. But nobody believed him. Not his family. Not even the doctor. His story was too fantastic. Too unbelievable. They thought he was delirious from his fever. The next morning, On August 9th, Yamaguchi, heavily bandaged, reported for work at the Mitsubishi office in Nagasaki. He had to report the outcome of his business trip. He sat in a room with his supervisor, recounting the unbelievable events of Hiroshima. He described the single bomb, the blinding flash, the mushroom cloud, and the utter devastation. His boss was skeptical. "You're an engineer," he said. "How could one bomb destroy an entire city? That's impossible." At that exact moment, at 11:02 a.m., the world outside the window turned white once more. Another blinding flash of light filled the room. Another pika. Instinctively, Yamaguchi dropped to the floor, just as he had done 3 days earlier. Another shockwave tore through Nagasaki, shattering the windows of the office building and sending debris flying. The plutonium bomb, nicknamed Fat Man, had just exploded over the city. The office he was in was less than 3 kilometers from ground zero. When Yamaguchi recovered, he found the city of his birth. The city he called home was now also a smoldering ruin. Miraculously, the bandages covering his wounds from Hiroshima protected him from the worst of this second blast. And even more miraculously, his wife and son, who had been out looking for anointment for him, had taken shelter in a tunnel and survived unharmed. But his world had been destroyed for a second time. The weight of surviving 2 nuclear attacks was immense. For years, Yamaguchi lived with the physical and psychological scars. He suffered from the long-term effects of radiation exposure. He lost his hair, the wounds on his arms turned gangrenous, and he was constantly sick. But perhaps the heaviest burden was the survivor's guilt. Why did he live when so many others, including many friends and colleagues, had perished? He watched as his wife suffered from radiation sickness, and eventually, his son Katsutoshi died from cancer in 2005. For decades, Yamaguchi rarely spoke of his experience. It was a private pain, too immense to share. He simply wanted to live a quiet life. But as he grew older, and as the world began to forget the horrors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he felt a duty to speak. He became a vocal advocate for nuclear disarmament. He believed his unique, terrible story was a message from fate. He was the man who was meant to survive, to bear witness, and to tell the world what he had seen. In his later years, he wrote a book and participated in a documentary. He traveled to New York to speak at the United Nations. In a frail but determined voice, he told his story, not for fame or sympathy, but as a plea for peace. He said, "The reason that I hate the atomic bomb is because of what it does to the dignity of human beings." Tsutomu Yamaguchi was officially recognized by the Japanese government as a Nih Ibakusa, a double bomb survivor, in 2009. He passed away in 2010 at the age of 93. His life is a powerful, heart-wrenching testament to human resilience, but also a chilling reminder of our capacity for self. His story is not one of superheroes or fantastical luck. It's a human story, a warning that echoes from the past, urging us to never, ever let it happen again. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please share it so that the memory of what happened is never lost. Subscribe for more true stories that deserve to be told.